upon a time there was a little boy, and he wanted to go hunting with his pop and the hound.
Good morning. Got a great show lined up for you this week. As you can see, I'm milking Daisy May here, getting a good start off to our day. We've been waking up a little bit later every day, and it's kind of pushing our day out, but I don't have to be at a job in the city, so I feel like I'm coming out ahead. So, the show today, we're covering a myriad of topics. I hope you enjoy it. Y'all can head on up to the workshop, and I'll be with you as soon as I'm done with Daisy May here. Howdy. Well, there's a slow, gentle rain falling right now. Turned off cool today. I like it. It's probably about 70 degrees. But the rain means I can't run the generator, which means I can't do some of my work in the workshop. So I'm just catching up and dabbling with some other stuff. This is a medieval dagger that I'm working on. It's about 18 inches long with a 14-inch blade. In the old days, the knights, when they would fight, they were covered in armor. And I don't know how they could even walk around in that, but they could. And they basically use their long Z-wenders or whatever you call them, big two-handed swords that they used. They'd use those to knock each other down. And then once the knight was down, because he was wearing so much armor, he couldn't hardly get back up. So that's when you'd rush in with one of these medieval daggers, put your hand on his neck, I guess, and go to the eye holes of his helmet. Now I suppose when you were looking up at a dagger like this, it was time to surrender. And since most of them were royalty, it was quite a bit of ransom involved. But these are fun to make. They take a lot more of my time, so they go for more. But, you know, high carbon steel, it takes a long time to shape the bevels and the edge. But I typically tend to whittle on it a little bit at the end of each day as I go. The weather's gotten a little spooky, so I guess it's mid-August. So it's time to start thinking about the winter garden. Primarily, I plant crops that are what I call come and come again, like okra and tomatoes, meaning that the plant is going to grow and it's going to put out fruit, but when you harvest the fruit, it's not everything. It's not the whole fruit. There's still going to be more fruit put out. The opposite of that would be onions, cabbage, that sort of thing. And the reason I use the come and come again plants is that I don't have a lot of space in my garden, and pretty much through the summer months everything has to be watered. So we tend to be very restrictive in what we grow. So I'm looking into what plants will be suitable for this climate for this winter. One of the problems we have is not just the cooler temperatures in the winter, which aren't really that cool. It looks like it's cool today. I'm out here wearing a flannel shirt and a stocking cap. But that's because it's about 68, 70 degrees. And I'm just not used to it. Normally it's been dipping down 75, 80 at night. I pull on a blanket. When you live almost your whole life in those 3-digit days, these cooler temperatures, they kind of catch you unawares. So yeah, the problem we have with the winter gardening is not so much the cold temperatures, because it's not cold for very long or any serious stretch. It's not even very seriously cold. It'll dip down at freezing, below freezing for the evenings, some of the evenings. You can keep a garden going pretty well. But the problem is that it's going to be 30 degrees at night, and then it's going to soar up to 75 degrees, 80 degrees during the day. And that is problematic for some of these plants. They want to grow, they're designed so that when there's a warm spell, they think, hey, look, it's summer, and they grow. Most of the crops that you have in your garden came from Europe, and they don't know anything about West Texas temperatures. So it's problematic. The exceptions are okra, which came from Africa, tomatoes, which came from South America, and then you've got also potatoes, which came from South America. Those are considered the New World crops, and they're all pretty hardy for this region. Potatoes are almost a come and come again crop because you can raid the hills and take the smaller potatoes right up to the end when you inadvertently kill the plant. I like new potatoes better than I like old potatoes, so I often do that. Plus, with the wet winters, sometimes the potatoes will rot in the ground, so it's better to get them up and out as quick as they're produced. But gardening in the winter around here can be a challenge, but we're going to start putting in broccoli. Our asparagus is coming up. I don't know when it's supposed to produce. I've never grown asparagus before. It's something we will eat. We all like it. We just hardly ever get it. Then, let's see, we got the broccoli, we got the asparagus. We're putting in some Brussels sprouts. I like Brussels sprouts. Nobody else in this household likes Brussels sprouts. This is the winter. I teach everybody to like Brussels sprouts. And so those are sort of the mainstays. Of course, there's going to be plenty of chard. We do a lot of chard. Chard it's a big leafy plant. And when you Swiss chard, when you put it into soups, it just sort of boils down into a goo. That's alright. You can't hardly see it. It's just a tiny little bit of green matter. But all the nutrients and filling is in the soup. So you're going well. We've been picking up pork from a local butcher. It's $1.89 a pound, which weirdly enough is cheaper than the pig that I raised. When we raised old Frank, I believe that between the feed I put into him and the butchering, he didn't turn out very cheap. I think it was something like $2.60 a pound, which is more expensive than grocery store pork. Now you might say, well, yeah, but you knew what went into him. He was a happy pig, healthy pig. Well, yeah, but I don't know that the pigs that I'm getting from this butcher are bad pigs. He's a good butcher. He checks his livestock pretty carefully that he's buying for resale. I trust the guy. You should always find a butcher that you trust. But that's pretty much going to be our winter garden. So our freezers, the standing refrigerator freezer is about filled up right now. And once the weather turns cool for good, we get past this little Indian winter or whatever you want to call it. Once we get past this little cold spell, we'll have another stretch of hot. And then probably mid-September it'll start cooling off for real. At that point, we'll hook up the big freezer. We'll fill that up. It's ironic, but the cost of the pork sausage per pound, we go through about 1.5 pounds a night. So the sale of one knife just about covers all the meat for our table for 20 days. That's awesome. That is awesome. That's a great way to turn your labor into food. The pig is something we're going to get back to eventually, raising a pig. I like raising a pig. Pigs are nice. But until the farm is producing more food, we need more dairy animals. We need bigger gardens. The farm needs to go beyond producing just enough for our needs, and needs to start producing enough for our needs and the needs of a pig. Once we reach that point, it's time to add a pig back in. But it does not appear to be economical to feed a pig out of your own pocket. Other people can do it better, cheaper, I guess. The cow is something we're still working towards, but we need fencing. We have a little bit of fencing, and we're moving outwards from there. So we're going to start keeping our eye open for a cow. Need a good, tame milk cow, family milk cow that maybe a little older, so she's been milked before, hand milked, not machine milked. And we'll see what we can get from that. Goats are fine. I enjoy milking the goats, but in the time it takes me to milk 3 goats, I could have milked 1 cow and still gotten way more milk. So I don't know how long term the goats are going to be as milkers. Probably what we'll do is we'll get a cow. If we have a good high quality goat, a gallon and a half goat, at that point what we would do is we would keep her just for cheese. I do love me dearly some goat cheese, and my wife makes this soft cheese that's just to die for. Now, those are all long-term plans, and you know what they say, God does with plans, he laughs at them. But we'll see what holds. We'll see what the future holds. Now that it's getting cold, my thoughts are turning toward winter. Now I know it ain't really that cold, and it ain't really anywhere near winter. It's still middle of August. But on a homestead, you got to be always thinking. You got to start planning for the future. I always try to stay a step ahead. And this winter, we're going to suffer a loss of some of the vegetables coming out of the garden. Possibly. I mean, some of these other crops may make up the lack, but I don't know if they will. It's hard to outproduce okra and tomatoes and zucchini. We don't really have anything vegetable-wise put back. So this is a time when the Indians who used to live here, the Apache, Comanche, those guys, they would have been putting back venison and fish. I can't really put back much fish. We have fish in the pond now. Finally. You go out there and you swim a little bit, and all these little fish come and nibble up around you. And I've seen some bigger splashes. And I think some of the bigger ones, when the big rains came, they washed in from upstream out of other people's ponds. We got some little fingerling catfish that probably washed in too. And some of them, these brim, and there's a lot of little bass fry, either small or largemouth bass minnows. I can see them. Those fellas probably were deposited by a crane of some sort. I don't shoot cranes. I let them. They'll take a couple of fish, and then they'll deposit a whole bunch of fish eggs. So they're really useful for your farm. Except genetically, they're probably only depositing ever the slow fish. But the pond is not yet up to a viable ecosystem. It's not fully self-sustaining. If we start pulling fish out of there too soon, it's gonna never really pan out to anything. So we needed to give it probably another year or two before sustaining. Now I could go over to the lake, Lake Brownwood, and go fishing, and I'm just not real sure that anything out of there is that healthy. They dump a whole lot of residue in that lake, which I don't like. It could be managed, but I just don't trust it. I know what's going into this pond. I don't know what's going in over there. Plus, they have limits and criteria, days you can fish, days you can't, what you can catch, what you can't. You have to have a license from the state. You know, they give you permission to fish in the King's Pond. So, it's just not worth it to me. I think today would be a great day to make some coffee. I don't know why I haven't made any coffee yet today. Most times it's too hot. It's too hot to drink it, so I don't ever do it. But today maybe not. Now, getting back to the deer situation, we can harvest probably 3 to 4 deer coming across our property. They come down for water, and we could probably take 2 to 3, butcher them this year. I'm not real sure how the license situation works and all that here in Texas. I'll have to look into that. If we lived further back in the woods, I don't know that I'd care too much about it. There's an old saying in Texas is that everything's legal if you can't see it from the road. But you can see pretty much my farm from the road. This is hunting country, and so they protect their revenue pretty strong. The king feels strongly about you eating his deer, and just trying to survive, that's not a very good excuse in the eyes of the law. So what we'll do is we'll probably get a license and get us a couple of deer this year. And the old time Indians, they would have smoked it, and I'm just not really prepared to do that. I don't have a smokehouse yet. I don't have any sort of that apparatus. I can make a little drying rack if it gets dry. I don't know though that it's going to work in my favor. So we'll probably freeze the meat. We've got a little grinder, and with a little grinder you can take the larger, tougher chunks of meat and turn them into some sort of sausage, and that'll cover your needs pretty well. But I think this is going to be the winter of wild game. Oh yeah, now that fire's going okay. Mostly just got trash in there, so we'll burn all that out, and then I'll get an actual little bit of wood going and heat me up a pot of coffee. But I think that's a fine way to support yourself. A little hunting, a little fishing, a little gardening. Rain's still coming down. Just a little drizzle. Just enough so I can't really uncover everything and run anything. Sort of stopping and starting. It's good for the garden, good for the grass, good for everything but working. That's alright. I guess a day off ain't gonna hurt me. We got some custom orders stacked up in the knife shop, and we're gonna get back to those. I got a special order of steel coming in. It should be here any day now, and so that's what I'm gonna use for some of these custom orders. I mean, I'm excited to get started, but that pretty much covered our week. Not a lot of new knives up in the knife shop. I'm working on it. I got a couple of them that came up this week and finished up. And the custom orders, of course, are petering in. So it's been a good week. Been a good week. This show, episode 11, is further than I thought I would get with this. But it's gotten a good reception, and I like doing it. So we're going to keep on doing it for a while more. Don't look like this weather is August, but it is. The Lord is providing in many, many ways. Rain is always good. Rain is a visible reminder that the one thing that we can't make happen ourselves, God will provide. I like that. Y'all take care. God bless you. Keep on being y'all. I'm Beetlezilla.